Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this very special program that we have right now for you. I am your host, Shabnum Riaz. It indeed is a great honor and a great privilege to be able to sit down today and to spend some time with Sardar Masood Khan, who is the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. He has very kindly given us some time from his very, very busy agenda, and we are really looking forward to spending time to speak to him today. Mr. President, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on Pakistan television.
It indeed is an honor for us because we are celebrating right now, we're in the midst of celebrations, 70 years of Pakistan's existence. And of course, personalities like yours, where you have had such an illustrious career and so much that you have, you know, gems to offer to other people, people who are watching this program, the young, the middle-aged, the old, everyone. There's an inspiration for everybody. You have assumed the presidency of Azad Jammu and Kashmir after a long and distinguished diplomatic career. You were Pakistan's ambassador and permanent representative to the UN, and also Pakistan's ambassador to China, amongst many, many other official ranks that you have held. For people who are watching today's program, we're talking about 70 years of Pakistan's existence. And we want to celebrate this in the best way possible. So the purpose of the programs that we are presenting is to, you know, explore the actual, if we think of John F. Kennedy's, you know, famous, very famous words. Think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So these things are absolutely, you know, really, really important to absorb in a mindset. How would you say that the average citizen of Pakistan has something to offer and something to add to the country?
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. It's a moment for celebration, no doubt. 70 years have passed since Pakistan was created, and the people of South Asia and people all around the world, particularly Muslims all around the world, should celebrate this month, these 70 years, because creation of Pakistan was a gift of God. It is also a culmination of the struggle of the people of South Asia. They wanted a separate homeland, and they got a separate homeland. At this moment, I also want to pay tributes to Allama Muhammad Iqbal, who conceived the idea of Pakistan, and also Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, whose outstanding leadership made this miracle happen.
Carving a map, an alternate map.
Creating a state, as a matter of fact. And as I said, that this is a moment for celebration. A moment of celebration for each and every individual of Pakistan. And your second question, what can the Pakistani citizens do? I think that the state has been doing a lot for Pakistanis. Pakistanis have been doing a lot for the state. But I think that our state is the aggregation of the interests and aspirations of its people. And I think that the stronger the people are, the more educated they are, the more forthright they are, the more honest they are, the more hardworking they are, the stronger Pakistan state would be. And I think that it is the responsibility of all individuals in Pakistan, but particularly who have been given good education, those who are in positions of power, those who are leaders in one capacity or the other. They should work hard. They should try to understand the dynamics in Pakistan, around Pakistan, the general thrust of the international politics, and try to carve a special place for Pakistan. I think this is happening. This evolution is already taking place. I remain confident that in a very short time, Pakistan is going to emerge as one of the strongest nations on earth, because Pakistan is on the cusp of an economic revolution, and it is already emerging as a regional leader, and it is a pivotal player in the international community.
Right. As you mentioned, the international community. Now, the international community is, when you talk to many people from abroad, they're basically victims of confusion. Because I have witnessed this thing myself as well. When I've had friends coming from abroad, the first thing that happens is when they come here, they're really pleasantly surprised. And they will say that this is a different Pakistan that we're looking at right now, as opposed to the impression that we had. So how do we go about rectifying these things?
I think the easiest course is that we should make Pakistan more attractive. We should try to invite foreigners from all around the world, particularly tourists, also investors and entrepreneurs, so that they can come to Pakistan and see for themselves that Pakistan is a stable, prosperous, prospering state. And that people are very hospitable, and it's one of the most beautiful countries on earth. But I think that this would not be enough. As we all know, more diligence is required. We have to invest in our economy, and that's what we are doing right now. And as the economy of Pakistan takes off, then naturally other countries would try to invest in Pakistan in different sectors. This is one way. The other is that going out, in fact, our own outreach to the world, because Pakistan has rich cultural heritage. We are propagators of peace. We seek peace and stability in the region. We're working on that agenda. And our outreach to the international community, not just to the governments or to the international forums, but to the people-to-people contacts, we should promote them. And that's how we can project a positive image of Pakistan, and we can project the soft power of Pakistan instead of the hard power, based on which people perceive Pakistan as a country which is grappling very serious problems like terrorism. That's also a reality. There's no doubt about it. But Pakistan has come a long way in defeating terrorism, and it is on its way to stabilizing the entire state.
You mentioned soft power, another very, very important aspect of Pakistan. How effective is the media being in projecting the soft power and so much that we have to offer?
There's the Pakistani media, and as you know, Pakistani media is very vibrant, and you have these 24/7 news channels, and you also have entertainment channels. So there's an explosion of media here in Pakistan. This is a good period for Pakistan, because this kind of media promotes accountability, and it also promotes transparency in society. But at the same time, I think that when the media is too free, they can focus disproportionately on the weak points of a state, and therefore wrong messages can be transmitted.
Negative propaganda.
Outside, negative messages can be transmitted outside Pakistan. Then there is the international media. The international media has its own vested interests. It focuses on things that suit them. They are caught in the quagmire of geostrategic dynamics, and therefore they have their own priorities.
Yes.
I would say that because of the war on terrorism that we've been fighting, their focus on Pakistan in terms of stability, in terms of economic development, has been skewed. And there too, it is our responsibility to reach out to them and to explain what we're going through, and to present the real picture of Pakistan.
Absolutely. You mentioned the war on terrorism. How would you describe Pakistan's resilience in being able to survive, and not only just survive, to progress in such a difficult neighborhood?
2 points. First, about war against terrorism, and it has been a fierce battle. It has been a daunting challenge, but the people of Pakistan, all state institutions, the armed forces, the security forces, they did take on this menace of terrorism, and they have been succeeding in the recent past. First, it was Zarb-e-Azb operation, succeeded by Raddul Fasad, and we've covered a lot of ground. And in fact, I mean, these terrorists have been flushed out. But it's a long haul. The battle is not over. In fact, the war is not over, because terrorism and violent extremism are interlinked, and we have to attack these two twin scourges. We are succeeding, but as you know, that terrorism has external linkages. Terrorism is being sponsored from abroad, and there are vested interests. It has been to some extent indigenized, but I think the external linkages are proving to be more problematic. Pakistan is in a difficult neighborhood. We have a hostile eastern neighbor. We have constant instability and volatility in Afghanistan. And we have two neighbors, two big neighbors, China and Russian Federation. Also, we have turmoil and chaos in Southwest Asia, particularly in the Middle East and in the Gulf states. I think that Pakistan has very narrow choices. Pakistan, within this atmosphere of turbulence, it has to find its own equilibrium, which it is trying to do. Its redemption, I must say, would be in its economic development. And in the recent past, Pakistan has made impressive strides towards economic progress, and this is very encouraging.
Right. Okay, and in your illustrious career, you have been, permanent representative to the UN and tirelessly highlighting the Kashmir cause on various national and international fora as well. When do you think India will actually realize that it cannot carry on with this oppression?
It's very difficult to predict when India would cease its repression in Kashmir. Because going by their past record, particularly in the recent past, the last year, it has been the most horrendous for the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. Hundreds of thousands of people have come to the streets to protest against Indian brutalities. They include blindings of young men and women through the use of the pellet guns. Also, hundreds have been killed. Young men and women are being tortured. There are incarcerations. Women have been raped and dishonored. Houses have been vandalized. And there's a reign of terror in AJ&k. So right now what they're doing is that instead of entering into a political dialogue with the Kashmiris, with the Pakistanis, they are escalating their repression. So there's no hope at all. What is even more ironic, more tragic, is that the international community is not taking cognizance of these crimes.
Rather turning
these
a
crimes
blind
against
eye.
humanity. And in fact, this is a kind of appeasement vis-a-vis India. And this is worrisome. I think that these crimes, which I was talking about, have been extensively reported by international human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch, Physicians for Human Rights and Amnesty International. So Brussels and Washington and New York and Geneva are aware of India's atrocities, and yet there are no resolutions being passed, no fact-finding missions being dispatched to the Indian occupied Kashmir. Had it been any other situation, let's say like Syria or Yemen or Sudan or South Sudan, there would have been these fact-finding missions, and there would have been peacekeeping operations there.
Yes.
So there are double standards which are being used. In that sense, I think that the international community, particularly the United Nations Security Council, are complicit, because they are looking the other way, and major powers, I'd like to say major powers, are not holding India accountable because of their economic interests or their strategic expectations from India.
Mr. President, how do you feel that even after 70 years, Kashmir is still occupied?
I feel very sad and grieved, as a matter of fact, because killings are taking place every day in the Indian occupied Kashmir. And we can't do anything about it. We can't stop these killings. 70 years have passed. India is free. Pakistan is free. The people of Azad Kashmir are free. They are called Azad Kashmir. But our brothers and sisters in Indian occupied Kashmir are still shackled and they were brutalized every day. So I feel very sad about it.
What then should be the strategy for the realization of the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people?
First, we mustn't lose hope. Second, we mustn't be intimidated by India. India has strategic alliances and Western countries have their economic interests with India. Despite these barriers, we would continue to strive for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the day would come when the people of IOK would be freed. And this I'm saying because the people of Kashmir for the last 70 years haven't surrendered, despite repression, despite economic blandishments, despite their demonization as extremists, and they would continue their struggle. Second, what I want to highlight here is that we are not begging for liberty. We're giving blood and we are waging a moral, diplomatic and political campaign, and we will succeed. This is a message to India. We will succeed no matter what they do. And when we approach the international community, we are not begging for liberty. We are demanding this as our right. And they have an obligation to help the Kashmiris in accordance with international law. You talked about strategy. I would like to say that we must forge unity within our ranks. This is imperative. We must go back to the international community, to the international forums, because India would not deliver Kashmir or would not cooperate on Kashmir with us or with the Kashmiris through the bilateral track. It has been absolutely unproductive. And third, I would say that we must use the newly acquired competencies and strengths of the diaspora community of Pakistanis and Kashmiris abroad, and we must use strategic use of the media, whether it is the traditional media or the new media. And if we use these four ingredients of our strategy together smartly, we will succeed.
Right. And as you have a distinguished diplomatic career behind you, I'd like you to share with our viewers what are the skills needed for being an effective communicator?
I think diplomacy is all about communication. You learn it, of course, in your schools and colleges, and then in the academies, diplomatic academies, and then you meet diplomats from all around the world. I think that effective communication is acquired slowly. There are no tips, there are no shortcuts. Communication, in order to make communication effective, you must have substance, and you must know how to communicate that substance to others, to your interlocutors. Also, in addition to your linguistic and semantic skills, you must be a credible person. Whatever you're saying should be credible to your interlocutors. So this is important. Your brief should be solid. You should be prepared. Like a lawyer before going to a court, you should also be prepared. Because negotiations, I would say, in the international forums or in the bilateral settings have different forms. I mean, you can have multilateral negotiations where hundreds of delegates are sitting, or you can have one-on-one negotiations, or delegation to delegation negotiations. Bilateral negotiations are between two states, and they can be on political or economic or strategic issues. When it comes to multilateral negotiations, the agenda could be very broad. For instance, it could be social development, it could be women's empowerment, it could be climate change, it could be sustainable development, or it could be disarmament. So I think that what you need is preparedness. You should have good linguistic skills. You should be honest, forthright, and diligent.
Right. And how much of an impact does body language have on the art of negotiation?
It is important. It is important because if you are evasive and if you are not forthright, or if you have something to hide and you can't hide it, then your competitors or your peers, they sense that weakness in you.
That
And
there's
they
a
can take
contradiction.
advantage of that. But I think that, as I said right in the beginning, you should have credibility and you should be prepared. Your brief should be solid. The other thing that I want to tell you is that always aim for the maximalist. I'll tell you, the maximalist agenda. Take the maximalist position. Don't start from a low threshold. Aim for the moon and the sky and the seven heavens. And then slowly start paring back your expectations. Do not surrender unilaterally. Do not make concessions unilaterally. When you are negotiating, you should negotiate, or you should give concessions or show flexibility when a genuine transaction is taking place. Don't announce your concessions prematurely, because that can be a case of death.
Right. This is all about strategy.
Yes,
isn't
this
it?
is. This is strategy and
Yes.
tactics.
Right. Mr. President, how would you say, as a nation, how are we in, indulging in the art of conversation? Is it becoming a forgotten art?
There are some very good conversationalists, but there's lots of noise on during television talk shows, and then you think that the art of decent conversation, conversations meant for communicating, is dying. But I think that still I come across many people who are very suave, who are very persuasive, who are good listeners, because half of the conversation is good listening, is about good listening. So I think that we should not lose hope. We have the art of conversation, and I think out of this chaos that you witness every day, something good would come out.
Right. When we were speaking, before as well, you mentioned hard work. Now, when we talk about hard work, so if you look at the youth of today, and you see the use of social media, the extensive use of social media, where what you're actually witnessing is things happening at a very, very fast pace. There's instant success, people becoming instant celebrities. So the patience, the time spent, the effort put in to achieving something and becoming successful, where is that going?
I think the social media is a very good tool. It's a modern tool, and it should be used effectively and efficiently. It has empowered citizens all around the world. You used to have these big media networks and big newspapers, and there used to be cartels and syndicates and whatnot. But now even an individual has a voice. Whether you're using microblogs or the Twitter account or Facebook or other social media, you have the liberty to say whatever you want to say. So this is the golden era for freedom of expression. We must celebrate that. And as you know, that the social media is not just about communication. This is not about social chit-chat. This is also about economic transactions, because people who are not even fully literate, they can conduct their business through the social media, through mobile telephony, through many other instruments that they have in their hands. Now, handheld device is more powerful than the most powerful computers, let's say, in the decades of the 1960s and 70s. So overall, it's a very positive development. It's a very positive tool. Social media empowers people, but it must be used responsibly.
And I think that is the key element there, the being responsible. Let's talk about Guide's message, devotion, devotion to duty, loyalty to duty, loyalty to country and loyalty to oneself. How do we, nurture that?
Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a role model, is a role model, and will continue to be a role model for the people of Pakistan and for the people of Azad Kashmir and Indian occupied Kashmir. In fact, let me tell you that before Pakistan was created, on 19th of July 1947, the people of Jammu and Kashmir decided to accede to Pakistan. And this was inspired by Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So we've made this vow to be part of Pakistan. Quaid-e-Azam's teachings are in fact a lighthouse for the entire nation. He has inspired several generations. He continues to inspire youth of today. But I think that the biggest inspiration is his own personality. He was a role model. And he is a role model because he never compromised. He did not indulge in dissimulation or deceit or double speak. He was honest, straightforward, forthright, and these are some of the characteristics in his personality which were recognized even by his worst opponents.
Absolutely. So you mentioned some very important things there. Characteristics, honesty, integrity, credibility, character building. I mean, we're spending a lot of money and a lot of time, a lot of resources in sending children to schools which parents think, in their individual capacity is the best place where they could get an education. How much time is being spent on actually improving the character building of a child in those formative years that it matters the most, rather than focusing on fixing a person, on an adult? Why do we not focus on the children at that time?
It varies from family to family. I think that some families are focusing on character building of their children, and it is producing good results. Pakistanis by and large have good character. They are moderate. They have sterling character when it comes to helping others. They have strong humanitarian instincts. So I'm not disappointed at all. I'm talking about the majority of Pakistanis there. They have excellent character. And they owe it to their parents, to their teachers, to the overall environment. And we still value those core values that made Pakistan. And but at the same time, no job is ever finished. No journey gives you to the final destination. In this case, character building of our individuals is a continuous responsibility. And you cannot neglect it, particularly because the situation is very fluid these days. The world is in flux in terms of value systems, in terms of technology, in terms of how people connect, in terms of how cyberspace has created these new opportunities for everybody, new means of communication, and it has created new neighborhoods. Today, I think a person sitting in Islamabad can communicate with a person sitting in Ottawa or Brasilia or Inner Mongolia. So I think that this creates new neighborhoods. These kids, children who are growing up today, they have dual or triple personalities. For instance, they belong to a nation, but at the same time, in the future, they will have to perform regional and international responsibilities. They would be taking decisions not just about their own country, but about other nations. So I think character building should also include expanding your horizons and awareness of the kind of world that in which you would live. I think that we must pay attention to these dimensions as well.
Right. In your diplomatic career, you had the opportunity to travel around the world. What country would you say that you found the most, that you learnt the most from?
I would say that Pakistan is the best country in the world, and Azad Kashmir, my own homeland, is the best in the world. And that's why, after all the odysseys and journeys, I came back to Pakistan. And I'm not saying this to fulfill my duty as a patriot. I'm saying this from the core of my heart, that Pakistan is the best country in the world. Why? Because we have association with this country. I grew up here, I was educated here. Whatever I have has been given by Pakistan. And wherever I went, I mean, in my long diplomatic career, I represented Pakistan. So I became the face of Pakistan, as all diplomats do when they are representing Pakistan abroad. But we have very close relations with China. And I lived there for about 8 years. I also lived in the United States. I served in the United Nations, both in Geneva and in New York, and in Switzerland, many other countries. But let me tell you that what has impressed me most about Western societies is their education system. It produces the best professionals. And the whole process starts right in the beginning, during the childhood of individuals and during their formative years. Also, their passion for excellence that they inculcate in children, passion for excellence and in any field that they choose for themselves, whether it is science or technology or literature or banking or finance. The other thing is what really impresses you is social stability in those societies, equal opportunity, access to justice, meritocracy, and some of these values go straight back to, in fact, all these values go back to the teachings of Islam.
Absolutely.
And they are part of the social and ideological fabric of Pakistan as well. What we need to bridge this gap between what we believe in and how we are practicing our beliefs.
Exactly.
And that's a challenge. But the short answer to your question, that Pakistan is the best country in the world.
That's a lovely answer. Okay, now let's talk about a bit about your broadcasting days.
Yes.
Because I know that you were an anchor, TV anchor. And how did this journey start? What challenges did you face and what did you learn from that?
Well, I was in my hometown. I was in my college during that period. One radio team went there, they interviewed me. And a producer who interviewed me, he said that, why don't you come over and do some broadcasting in Radio Pakistan. So I remember that, but when I came to Rawalpindi, I went to Rawalpindi PBC. It used to be called Radio Pakistan at that time. So they auditioned me, and I did many programs later on. I did programs for youths. I interviewed people. I read news, and a little later, I also did anchoring for Pakistan television. It was a different era altogether. You used to have only Pakistan television.
Right.
And so
much more scrutiny as well.
Yes, and I had passion for broadcasting. I loved broadcasting. Had I not joined the civil service, I would have stayed in broadcasting. Right. And so whenever I meet broadcasters, I feel this special bond that I have with them, whether it is Radio Pakistan or whether it's Pakistan television. Right. Although the entire scene of broadcasting has been revolutionized since those days.
True. Your first bulletin, how nervous were you? Was it okay? Did it transpire okay? Everything was fine?
It was all right, but every bulletin was a new bulletin. and before every bulletin you would be nervous. And this kind of light nervousness, I'm told, is good for
It's good,
every
exactly.
broadcaster.
The adrenaline rush.
Because you're not sure about your performance before you have really uttered the last sentence. So it's about, I mean, you have been a broadcaster, you are an accomplished broadcaster. I admire you. I have admired you for a long time.
Thank
you know that you require precision, and you need again credibility, and
full concentration.
Full concentration, and you should appear dignified and friendly.
True.
So you should not look standoffish, and at the same time you should not be very submissive. So
True.
you have to have a kind of combination.
Exactly.
When you're reading the news. And so it went well,
Great.
as long as it did.
That's great. What, in your opinion, is the requirement for a person to be, not to just get an education, but to be educated?
One thing which is important is to continue to learn and study. You should never think that at one point you become learned and that you have acquired knowledge. It's a lifelong quest, and you should read every day, and you should read all sorts of stuff, not just your professional readings, but fiction or science and technology and newspapers, so that you have a wide horizon. And that's how you are educated. The second thing is that you should listen to the people. You should observe people. You should listen to the people. You should try to absorb as much as you can. That is what would make you educated. The other thing that you should always be humble, because no matter how educated you are, how learned you are, you know very little. This universe is vast. Human experience so far cumulatively, despite the evolution for several centuries or several millennia, is very, very finite. And we should look towards the future with an open mind. As you can see, I mean, you can compare the world of today with the world as it was 100 years ago. And it's no comparisons are comparisons or contrasts can really bring out the journey that has been carried out by humanity. Now, this process of learning in the coming decades or centuries would be even faster. So I would say that we should remain humble and try to learn as much as we can.
Those are, amazing words, and I'm sure that for our viewers who are watching this interview, that they have had so much to learn from your, not just your illustrious career and the role you have right now as president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, but also the person behind everything, because it is the personal story, the information that people such as yourselves have to share that make that lasting impression and give other people so much inspiration. And not only inspiration, but it gives them a sort of a guideline, a path for where to follow. That has been a wonderful message indeed at the end of today's interview. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being able to talk with us about this, this wonderful time in our lifetimes where we are celebrating 70 years of Pakistan's existence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure talking to you.